Welcome to this Global Leaders in Law video. I'm Georgina Stanley, I'm the editor of Legal Week, and I'm here today with Alistair Maughan, who co-heads Morrison & Foerster's global technology practice and is based in London. Welcome, Alistair.
Nice to be here.
And Alistair, you've been conducting some research with general counsels around the world looking at how their role is changing. So what is the first trend that you've noticed?
Well, the most frequent trend we found from having spoken to general counsel in lots of different jurisdictions was the frequency with which they engage with their chief executives. I mean, it used to be, back in the day, that the contact between the chief exec and the general counsel was more sporadic perhaps, but now there's a much more dynamic sense of engagement between the chief executive and the board and the general counsel, much more deep engagement on a broader range of topics.
And what does that mean in terms of the skill set required of general counsels now?
I think general counsel have always obviously had to be technically strong lawyers, but there's much more focus now on breadth as well as depth and on intangible skills, on understanding, being empathetic with what the different stakeholders within the organisation want. The GCs that we've talked to find both that they need to be leaders within the organisation and represent their particular functionality within the organisation, but they're also increasingly leaders of their own teams.
And are GCs having to take on more of a leadership role?
Oh, definitely. I think many GCs have always been leaders within their organisations, but the requirement to be a strong leader is ever greater, both as business leaders within the organisation and also leaders of a greater sized legal team and a more diverse legal team and a more geographically spread legal team. So it's important to make certain that those leadership skills are displayed across the organisation.
And do those leadership skills come naturally to most GCs?
I suspect not to all lawyers. Obviously some GCs are stronger than others, but the good news I think is that many organisations now are focusing on training and mentoring and coaching and getting younger lawyers to learn those leadership skills at an earlier stage in anticipation of their rise throughout the organisation.
And what about technology? Obviously that's changing every profession. How's it impacting the GC role?
I think it's changed the GC role in two ways. Firstly, GCs have got to deal more with their organisations, their businesses adopting more technology. Even if it's a non-tech business, the business will be adopting probably a technology-based channel to market, so therefore there are more legal issues to understand about how you deal with that. But also it's changing the way in which legal services are provided. It's changing the relationship between in-house lawyers and their external legal support providers. So understanding the types of technology that are out there and the way technology is being implemented is important for GCs to do.
And how do they go about making those decisions when they're faced with dozens of vendors? How do they pick which technology they need and who they're going to get it from?
I think by talking and listening, particularly listening to what their organisation wants, and also finding opportunities to talk to other people in the same position. Things like the Global Leaders in Law Network, which brings together information of others in the market, both as to what's out there and the way other organisations are adopting what's out there to use within their businesses. So find some relationships and start those conversations.
And one challenge at the moment, given all of the sort of cyber attacks, things like that, risk management, what is the implication for general counsel for risk management?
Yeah, I think increasingly, I mean, we've seen the rise of the role of general counsel and chief risk officer. Sometimes they're split, sometimes they're put together. So that combined role is something we're seeing. But I think increasingly the legal function as a whole is seen as a key identifier and responder to risk issues, whether they're cyber risk issues or insurance risk issues or privacy or data risk issues. The legal function is the interface between the chief privacy officer and his or her team, for example, and the rest of the business. So the legal function, and especially the GCs, are there to help interpret the risks that are being identified by other parts of the business and filter those and prioritise those for boards.
How is globalisation disrupting GCs' roles?
Well, just as GCs have had to adapt their roles to reflect the change in business, the greater disruption that technology is bringing to businesses, both whether you're the disruptor or the disruptee, is evolving the way they need to do business. You know, M&A, for example, technology M&A is a great driver of activity, and therefore GCs need to understand the way that's delivered in a more uncertain political environment across more borders than ever before. So a greater understanding of the way that uncertainty works and how the organisation plans for and reacts to uncertainty that disruption brings, I think that's what GCs have been required to learn and required to plan for.
And when the GC is looking at all of these different relationships, both internal and external, do you think they're doing enough in terms of tracking their legal spend and who they're working with and how they're doing it?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing General Counsel putting a lot more focus on that, and that's both our experience as a law firm and from talking to General Counsel as well, and thinking about issues like e-billing is increasingly common, obviously putting time and effort into actually using AI and technology to track the way in which legal issues are resolved, know-how is gathered, data about legal spend, for example, is gathered, and we're seeing the rise of sort of legal services organisations or legal services operatives within General Counsel's teams to gather that information and provide that intelligence to the legal function.
And were there any other key findings from the research that you want to highlight?
I think it's a much harder role than it ever was, the role of the General Counsel, because they are seen as business leaders and they've got to carry on with their day job of running the legal services organisation while also being a sort of channel to market and understanding where the business needs to go. I think it changes the way all law firms manage their relationships with General Counsel, and it's important for us as a law firm to be more understanding, to listen more to what General Counsel wants. And I think all the feedback that we get is what in-house lawyers want is their law firms to listen to them and to understand and not just pump information to them, but to pump relevant information to them and to anticipate their needs. So it's that understanding and having a two-way conversation, I think, is what General Counsels want, so their time isn't wasted.
Well, Alistair, that was great. It's all been really interesting.
Thank you so
very much. And thank you very much for watching this video.